5:30, we'll go ahead and call. And start. See if this working. Is this working? I think it is. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hey, welcome. Purpose of the meeting is for the board to conduct board business. Meeting is open to the public and is recorded. And you can listen to all past board meetings by visiting board docs through our district website. And this meeting is being presented via Zoom. It's not appropriate for your audience members to interrupt board business or ask questions during the meeting. Agenda items will be addressed as listed in the agenda. And in case of emergency, please use the exit closest to you. And go on to our vision and mission statement. Director Roca, would you care to share that?
Sure. Our vision is our community inspires and prepares each student to thrive. Our mission is in connection with our community. The Sequim School District empowers staff to inspire hope and provide flexible, innovative learning opportunities in a safe and respectful environment so each student thrives.
Thank you. Director Johnston, would you share our land acknowledgement?
We acknowledge the land we stand on. The Sequim School District administrative and school buildings sit on the ancestral land of the S'Klallam people. While the S'Klallam traditionally come from one nation, history has led to the formation of three sovereign S'Klallam-Klallam tribal governments. Lower Elwha Klallam tribe located in Port Angeles, Washington, Jamestown S'Klallam tribe located in Sequim, Washington, Port Gamble S'Klallam tribe located in Kingston, Washington. The district's primary partnership is with the Jamestown S'Klallam tribe. Today, the tribe and district share a partnership that includes official consultation on program and funding changes that may directly affect American Indian and Alaska Native students, as well as holistic service planning for students to remain successful in their educational journeys.
Thank you. And with that, we will move on to 2.0. Senior Student Board Representative recognition. Sort of a sad, happy kind of agenda items. So, start us out.
Sure. So as we conclude each year, of course, our senior board representative is ready to move on and go on to other leadership opportunities in your future. And we just would like to give you our sincere recognition for all of the work you've put in, all the learning you've done, and the difference you've made in being a student leader for the school board. I'm sure each of our board members might have a message for you tonight, so we'll turn it over to them, and then we'd like to hear from you if you are interested. Okay.
All right. Why don't we start Director Roca? Anything to share?
I just want to thank you for your service. It's been a pleasure. And I wish you the best on your future endeavors.
Thank you. Well, the same. It has just been so much fun seeing your smiling face walk into every meeting, and I've enjoyed our time that we were able to spend at WASDA conferences together. I just think you have great things ahead of you, and I am very excited to see where you go from here. So thank you again for the time and the energy that you put into this. I know you're a very busy young woman and you've had a lot of things on your plate, and you've always managed to make this seem like an important priority to you as well. So thank you.
Yeah, and I want to thank you for your being on the board and being such a pleasant, like smiling face, as somebody else mentioned. I'm looking forward to hearing about your future. So make sure you come back and tell us how things are going.
Thank you.
And Desira, thank you so much for working with us these last couple of years. It's really been a pleasure to get to know you. And, you know, what they call student voice is so important. It is so important to have you here on our school board representing the students of this district. So I think you've done that with grace and aplomb and honor and everything else. And it's just been wonderful to work with you. Thank you.
I share certainly my agreement with everything that the rest of the board said, but also just thank you for your advocacy on behalf of students. I know a lot of this role isn't just what happens here. It's also what happens outside. You've definitely shown it. Yeah, a true leader and represent the students as well, which I think you probably would have done regardless of this role. You would have stepped up to be an advocate for your fellow students, but I think that's an important part of the role. And I thank you for that service and thank you for your leadership on the board.
Thank you so much.
And one thing I'd like to tell everyone is that we have planning meetings for board meetings. And one thing about Dasara is she's consistently curious. And I think that is a wonderful attribute for a leader because you're always looking to hear and know what you might not. And I think that discovery is going to pay dividends to you in your later life also. So I can't wait to see what you accomplish. And with that, we have a little something for you. And we'll hear. So we'll get those passed around. And, thank you and turn it over to you. Thank you.
Yes, I would like to say thank you to all of you for giving me the opportunity to serve as a student representative for the past 2 years. I feel very honored that I was part of the school board, where I've learned and grown through the experiences and interactions. I thank you that you have given me the opportunity to be the voice and the presence of our students. Thank you for the help, the guidance, the interactions where we've given and taken from each other, thoughts, ideas, and help. And you all have helped me so much. With those will follow me as I continue to go on my journey. This is an experience that I will not soon forget, and I hope that experiences between students and staff will continue with the same passion and excitement in the future for our school. Wholeheartedly, I wish you all the best in your future work. That is all I had. Thank you.
All right. With that, we will go ahead and keep on going and please enjoy the treats as well. There's some treats to pass around. Okay. That's gonna bring us to the approval of our minutes, also our agenda and consent agenda. So is there any objection to the approval of our minutes, agenda, and consent agenda? Hearing none, we will consider those approved. And that's going to bring us to the public comment portion of the meeting. Two ways in which you can make public comment. You can either sign up using the clipboard, probably have somewhere, I assume. Still getting my.
Tracy just went.
Oh, did she go and grab it? Okay, excellent. The other way is by using the raise hand function on via Zoom. And so if you are attending the meeting virtually via Zoom, please indicate your desire to make public comment using the raise hand feature down at the bottom of your screen. And we will go ahead and get you queued up for public comment. Veronica Brenna. Oh, and one moment, Veronica, I just want to make sure I give you the guidelines for public comment first. I almost forgot. So do want to mention that our board has does allow for public comment, but also, and it's based on a 30-minute window, and each speaker has a maximum of 3 minutes. And groups of individuals may combine their time up to a 10-minute maximum. And do want to stress that public comment period is not a time for dialogue between the board and the public. The board will not respond to statements, questions, or challenges made during public comment period, and there will be no back and forth dialogue. But please know that the board's silence is neutral. It is neither in agreement nor disagreement with the speaker's remarks. And although the board will not engage in dialogue, the board chair may ask the speaker a clarifying question. It is also possible that the school district staff may contact the speaker at a later time to follow up on an issue raised during public comment period. Finally, please remember that your words have impact and you, not the school district, are responsible for your words. We do caution all speakers that it is possible that your statements could violate the rights of others under various laws, including laws protecting privacy and laws prohibiting defamation. If you are unsure of the legal effects of your remarks, you should seek independent legal advice. In any case, we ask you to help us model for our students what a respectful and inclusive community looks and sounds like. And so with that, now, please.
Can you hear me? Hello, hello. I have a bad voice, so I'm gonna make this quick. I came tonight with a fellow bus driver. We both drive a school bus for SQUIM. And we've been a little bit more involved with meetings and such this year. So it's been fun. It's been a little bit challenging. We've had a lot of changes. As you know, we have a new director of transportation, Don Hall, and he has been really good. He's brought new ideas. He's been around. He's seen it, done it. And he respects us. We respect him. I'm just really appreciative he's there. And I hope you guys know how much he means to our division. One of the things we were going to address tonight was the talk about the gray wolf wanting to start early. I don't know where that stands right now, but just a really quick thought on that. If you're going to be putting K through 2s on a bus early, for what I understand is student management, you know, it's better, easier to put them on the bus than to have them sitting around. I'm not sure. That's just how I understand it. The problem is that these students then are going to go first and be on a route the whole time. So they're not getting any advantage out of this. They're not having a shorter day. They're not having a shorter time on the bus. And in the evening, if we go get them first, is this right, Regan?
That is what we were.
Okay. And if we go get them first, then we not only go all the way to Gray Wolf from the bus barn, we turn around and bring them back to Stadium Lot to sit at Stadium Lot while we gather middle and high schoolers. Just seems counterproductive. We have a bus driver, no aide, and that's fine. I'm not complaining about that because we all handle our buses in different manners. But that's totally counterproductive. That just puts them longer on the bus and less time waiting for the bus to show up with their teacher in a smaller group. So that being said, I'm going to move on to another subject just really quickly that was addressed this year and it's been tabled for this year. And I just want you guys to really give it some thought, maybe some second thoughts, the 2-bell system. If we readdress this again in the future, all these little issues about K through 2s standing around for too long, they're bored, they're naughty, comes to an end. We put them on a bus, we deliver them. We don't mess around. They're not hanging around on a bus. We get them home or we get them to school. We don't have them mixed up with middle schoolers. We don't have them mixed up with high schoolers. And honestly, 11th and 12th graders aren't generally the problem. Middle schoolers.
You're at the 3 minutes, so just wrap up.
Okay, middle schoolers are sometimes. But I just want to ask you all to open your minds to the 2-bell system. I think we could not only reduce time for the students on the bus, will increase student count and possibly cut a few drivers.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, do anybody virtually? Okay. I believe that concludes our public comment portion. And next, we're gonna have our student board representative report.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. With the end of the 2023-2024 school year ending in about 2 weeks, SHS students are preparing and finishing up all their work. As we are nearing the end of the school year, there are some events that I would like to highlight, such as the Decision Day Assembly, which was today, where the seniors of Scum High School showcased which colleges they will be attending after graduation. It was a delightful assembly, and another event that we will be having this week is Campus Day, which is on Friday. Thank you. That is all. Good evening, everyone. Tomorrow on June 4th, there is a choir concert in the auditorium at 7 p.m. This will be the last choir performance for this year, where the choir students will perform the music they have been working on the last couple of months. June 5th is a scholarship award ceremony to recognize the seniors that have earned a scholarship. This will take place at the auditorium at 6 p.m. And lastly, baccalaureate will be this Sunday, June 9th at Dungeness Community Church at 6 p.m. For those who don't know, this is an opportunity for the seniors that attend church to have a little hangout and get celebrated for graduating. That is all I had for you today. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, that's going to bring us to our board reports for our reports to the board. And we're going to start with our annual health services report.
Just as a test for the audience, are you hearing okay? Is it good? Okay, great.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for allowing me this time to come before you. It feels like a lot to try to decide what to put in this report when it's such a busy year, but I pick out the highlights. So again, thank you. And I hope that if questions come up during that, you'll just go ahead and ask, because informal feels good. Thank you. So I may be here speaking, but I am here representing the hard work that is happening by the health services paraeducators. Sherry Hendrickson, at 29 years this year, is retiring from health services. And Cassie Cobb is going on to nursing school. So we're, of course, within our area department, super, super excited for them both. Artis Mangano beat Sherry by, I think, 2 years as one of the longest employed paraeducators in the district. Celine Frick at the high school, Kyla Adolph moved from Helen Heller Health Room to the middle school health room because Kate Ross took a teaching position halfway through the year. And Karen Huber, who's been subbing in health services for 2 years, came in as an employee in the Heller Health Room. She was our COVID Central employee staff member. And James Lee continues to sub out at Grey Wolf Elementary. The staff undergo a massive, massive amount of annual training. Our goal is to, of course, support student learning by accommodating their health needs. There are many students that would not be able to stay all day at school if we weren't able to do that. In talking to the health services staff, I actually had a nurse working with me this year, an ER nurse who's working on her bachelor's degree in public health. So she was precepting with me, and the health services staff were pretty astounded to hear that they were doing procedures that even she doesn't do regularly. So a medical assistant, an LPN, they would still be working under my licensure at school. An RN works under her own licensure. So she was working under her own licensure, but it would take an RN to replace any one of the paras on that last list because of the training they do for the district. So every year we turn in the district assessment, and this year the count was 215 medication orders, which include daily medications and emergency medications, 38 EpiPens at school for life-threatening allergies, total of 1,400 plus health conditions of varying severity. I just think that the work that they do can't be overstated. So thanks to them. Some of the training that they do in order to give students with seizures nasal midazolam, they have to be specifically trained. PDA stands for Parent Designated Adult. In order for some students to receive care in the district, they either have to have an RN caring for them or somebody not working under my licensure with special training. That's what the Parent Designated Adult classification does. I run the training program because I'm experienced in these things, but they actually operate based on that training and not under my licensure, which means that we can have students with seizure disorders and diabetes here at school without me having to specifically provide their care at all times. Additionally, we had big notices from the State Department of Health this year about measles. In March, there were 11 cases in Eastern Washington, and the way those were moving around made everybody at the State Department of Health very nervous, which means that any one person traveling can easily bring it into another area. So a lot of training about how to recognize that within the school district health rooms. The same with pertussis. In fact, Clallam County actually sent on a notice asking that the school send it out to notify people of how many cases we're having of pertussis locally. And again, staff training so that they would recognize that and be able to give our local providers a heads up on it. So I'm just going to hit the successes. There's so many to count, but I did, pull up some real big ones. Sequim School District was way ahead of the ball game here on naloxone policy, putting that in place. And this fall, we did all the training for staff required, and the naloxone was placed at Sequim Middle School and Sequim High School. And then because we decided as a school to become part of the Department of Health's naloxone distribution program, we got more doses of naloxone, which allowed us to put extra doses at OPA and allow for doses at transportation. So the additional sites receive training as well. School vision and hearing screening. Again, the Sequim Valley Lions came and donated their time and services to do both our vision and hearing screening. We were done within 2.5 days, amazingly short period of time. So lost seat time is always important. And they also help provide students in need with free vision exams and glasses. This year, when our audiometers were screened, the company that screened them said they're obsolete. Now, if they aren't the exact audiometers I used at Helen Haller Elementary, they're the same version. So I did apply for a grant to see if we could get a couple of those replaced. Also, we're looking at the wax being changed potentially. I think you can go ahead and change that, Tracy. Yeah, there's a rule modification to use OAE hearing screening, autoacoustic emission. So the way you screen with an OAE screener is that evidently the little hairs in your inner ear, when they hear sound, vibrate. And that sound can be picked up. So if you hear within the normal range, the autoacoustic audiometer can pick that up without the student actually having to do anything, which is really nice. Our plus optics cameras have been great in allowing us to screen the younger kids. And this would do the same thing because they wouldn't have to perform anything to do that. We collaborated with the food bank and added extra vaccines in Sequim using the Department of Health's caravan. They're invited back again to the Sequim Back to School Fair in August. And Victoria and I, thank you, Victoria, worked so hard. I'm very pleased that we have a staff handbook. You can see it on the district webpage. You go to departments and HR and staff information, it's there, and school health services is in page 30, 31, 32. I have it memorized, linking it to many people. And as of May 30th, we in school districts have basically reached the end of the COVID-19 pandemic. Here's some applause. So that's a big moment. The COVID-19 pandemic was a big deal. We are still providing take-home tests. That's the last of them that we ordered from the Department of Health. So we still have a small program left because of course those lot numbers and they're all being stored a certain way, all has to be recorded. But the Department of Health and the OSPI have developed the new infectious disease guide. The last one done was completed in 2014, but what they've added to this one is COVID-19, enterovirus, mpox, H flu, and RSV. And so with that, they have sunsetted everything else COVID related. And I worked on the district pandemic flu plan, which will be made available once it goes through all the processes. However, every time I go back to it, I have to keep trying the old links because every other day one disappears and a new one's replaced. So I think by the end of June, middle of July, the Department of Health will have completed most portions that are linked in the appendixes of this. They are going to continue the self-testing guidance, and they're working on a what do you call that? Infographic, basically, so that in the fall, schools will have something for families that's very clear cut. They left in the Learn to Return story map, which is kind of a review starting from fall of 2020 that includes the 6.5 million tests in the state of Washington that schools handed out, part of their program to help us stay open during the COVID pandemic. And the Department of Enterprise Services will allow us continued access to get home tests if we choose to have them, but their recommendation is that we ask people to get over-the-counter OTC tests. So all the new guidance is symptom-based. The Department of Health, LNI, and all the way OSPI and all the school districts are basically saying you have to be fever-free for 24 hours off of any fever-reducing medication and feeling better. There are no testing or isolation guidelines anymore. And with that, I would say one of the best things about the pandemic, and there are just a couple, so since we're talking about successes here, is been the collaboration and the support that's been available since the pandemic that I never witnessed within the state agencies before this. So currently there's a public health partnership with Clallam and Jefferson and Kitsap County Public Health. They meet with the OESD and school districts weekly to discuss various health topics that are important in schools given any given week. There's a rural nurse group led by Wendy Jones at the OESD, my counterpart. And I'm on the Department of Health OSPI Nurse Advisory Group, where now we're starting to look at the policies, the changes to the state laws, and how that affects nurses in schools to make sure that the intended effect is what's actually happening. So, thank you. Do you have any questions for me tonight?
Question?
I just have one question. It mentions here a district pandemic advisory team that's made up of, community members, et cetera. Is that always in existence, or does that just come into being when there is a pandemic declared?
That is just when there's a pandemic. So what we want is our emergency operations plan in place, and we want to know who our entities in the community there are for support. But if a pandemic would be called, and in fact, they probably won't even call it a flu pandemic in the future, but just a pandemic plan, not knowing if it would be flu or some other type of, organism, that's when we would start the advisory team.
Yeah.
And that's what we did in COVID-19.
Thank you.
Yeah. Right.
Any other questions?
I'd just like to make a comment. Sonia serves on our safety committee, and our district safety committee has several big projects that it needs to work toward, and her guidance is invaluable. Also her network, she's been doing this for a while and has a really strong understanding of what we have solid and put to bed, like the plans that she writes so eloquently, but also what we really need to be doing next. So thank you for all of that guidance and your mentorship around those areas that we're not all expert in. So appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, next we have our annual transitional bilingual report. Hello.
Good evening. I'm Andrea Dietzman, and I'm a bit of a unicorn because I run our ELL program. I'm a full-time teacher as well as coordinator of the program. This is just a little bit about me and my qualifications to lead the ELL program. Last year, I actually got an additional endorsement in English language learners, as well as my master's in teaching English as a second language. So it's been a wonderful professional time to have sort of everything I could possibly have to work with our multilingual students. So one thing I like to share is what our students go through when they come to any school district, but we're talking about SCWIM School District. They go through stages of learning, and we have students that come that might not have ever spoken English in their entire life. We have others that come from maybe a little bit of English, other languages in their family. And it can often take 5 to 7 years to obtain fluency or proficiency in English. So it's a long road. Some acquire it faster, depending on the home, depending on the usage, but it can take, 1 to 2 years. They're speaking basic interpersonal skills. They have many skills, but it takes many more years to get the academic skills that we need. And so that's what we really work on, is the basic communication skills as well as the academic skills needed to gain proficiency. So this is our district, and I love this screen because it changes every year. Currently it says 54, but guess what? Last week I have 55 now. I have a brand new 5th grader that has not spoken a word of English. So it is super fun. We've got students from language backgrounds speaking Spanish. We've got Guatemalan languages, indigenous languages in Guatemala, Portuguese, Chinese, Vietnamese, Gujarati, Patois, which is a Creole, and that is a language in itself, Japanese. So you can see I broke down kind of where we have our students right now. We have 25 students at Helen Haller, 9 at Grey Wolf, actually 26 students at Helen Haller now, 9 at SCWIM Middle School and 11 at SCWIM High School. And this can even include foreign exchange students who come just for a year. They'll be under my program if they need greater English skills. So it's called the English Language Learner Program, although OSPI also calls it multilingual. And that's something that you'll hear ML, you'll hear ELL. ML is kind of more, I would say, the coming term that we would be using, because these students are assets. They're multilingual. They might speak 3 languages. So multilingual is actually kind of a more proper term. But our model, there's different models that the state has, and that's a whole nother conversation, but our model is supportive mainstream. So what that means is I am the ELL teacher, so I push in or I pull out students, and I work very hard with teachers to see what type of intervention and support I can give them. And then I work with other, reading specialists and SPED and support services. And the important thing is that the time that I spend with that student really is research-based ELD, English language development, so that they can, grow in their skills. And we use, the state of Washington uses WIDA standards. So that's a lot like our state standards that we expect, all of our educators to use in their content areas. WIDA standards just goes really nicely side by side with that. We find our students through the home language survey. This year, the district actually gave out the home language survey to everybody. And so I got all of those back. And that was an incredible clarification to see if we had missed any students during COVID, or to see, just to make sure that all the students that are supposed to be in the program are tested and in the program. And it was great to kind of do that after COVID and everything else. And so right now we have, screened students appropriately. We all know who is qualified for the services. And every year they have to take a test, and it's a big one. And this is something where it's demanding. They have to take a test in speaking, listening, reading, and writing. The state just added something that I think is very, very helpful. If a student is just 0.3 or 4 decimal points, tenths of a point of passing the WIDA, if they get a 3 or a 4 on the SBA Smarter Balanced Assessment in ELA, they can exit the program. And that to me was a really fair change this year, because I've had students where I'm like, wow, they're just a little bit short and they really don't need the services anymore. And, that's something that we have to make decisions with and with our professional judgment. But I'm just thrilled that they can actually exit out more. And so I already had one student do that this year. So, and when they test out, what does that mean? They are deemed proficient and they get a certificate from me in their classroom. And we have a fun little celebration. And then we monitor them. So as the ELL teacher, I monitored them for 2 years. I check their tests. I check in with their teachers. And so these kids are just supported. This one, just briefly, these are the kind of roles that an ELL specialist has that's a little bit different from a classroom teacher. But I do inform the staff and the teachers about culture. So if teachers get new students, they don't know very much about the culture, I can sort of be a liaison with that, with the families and the general education teachers. I also really love to adapt their curriculum. Part of my grant is that we use the curriculum that we have, but we adapt it and modify it. So students aren't doing extra, students aren't doing something different. They're just more accessible to what we're doing. So whatever curriculum we're using, we're moving them forward in that. I also share their scores with the teachers, so the teachers know what's appropriate in their general ed environment. And also just working, again, collaboration, working with special ed teachers, working with specialists, and assessing them every year to see how they'll grow and to see if they can reach proficiency. So last year, I think these were some of the goals that I set out at the board meeting. But we talked about my program to some degree needs to be done in a cluster model. So that might mean, we're a small district. So I might only have 4 second graders in the program. But instead of giving those 4 second graders to 4 different second grade teachers, it would make a lot more sense to put them in a cluster. So maybe you would have 3 or 4 together. And also this really builds cultural identity for students. If you have a brand newcomer who has another peer in their class that speaks their language, that can be incredibly encouraging and really a wonderful bridge for learning. So we try to cluster, and with our small groups, it works really well. And that was a goal last year, and we'll talk about how that's turned out. And so the collaboration is always something to continue to grow in, whether it's the elementary level or the secondary level. One of the goals was to have materials at the open house for parents to be able to learn about the program, and we did that this year. So that was helpful to just have that available for them to be able to pick up and know, what is this English language learning program my child is now in, and what does it entail? So successes this year. 13 students exited this year from my program, and that's a big number. That's the biggest number I've had since I started in September 2021. And I really think that's what we're seeing with, the COVID effect, or just seeing students, growing and becoming more engaged and doing better. I think that we're seeing more of that all over across the board. So I was excited to exit them and present them with certificates. I also was very excited to use curriculum that I've ordered and use it all year and see it being more effective. So a lot of the curriculum that the district bought for me was useful for test preparation, so they could know what the WIDA test is like. They could practice using prompts and using their critical thinking. I also had, language journals that were bought because a lot of students need to work on writing. Writing is one of our big goals as a district in general this year, to help students improve their writing. My ELLs are a big part of that. They might pass every domain except writing. So I need to have curriculum that's laser focused, that says, how do we get these students' writing skills up? Just like any student, right? So the focus is really important. And I feel like that's a big success. I had students pass writing that they didn't pass last year, even though they passed every other domain. So I'm thankful for the curriculum. I'm thankful for implementing it. Yeah. So one of the successes is also a cluster in first grade. I worked with a teacher at Grey Wolf very closely. I would go in 3 afternoons a week for an hour and a half and work with the same 4 kiddos each day. And that was incredible because we were collaborating. We were making sure those kiddos were just constantly growing, and we were talking together. And it was a perfect model to have an ELL teacher just right in the classroom working with the curriculum and seeing those kids regularly. So I'm very happy about that model, and I hope it carries on next year with the groups of kids. Some of the challenges, actually, one of the challenges that I didn't put up here, but I wanted to talk about is because I'm only one person in this program, I actually have a paraeducator that helped me with the kindergarten grade band, and she has been doing that for a few years. And I work first through 12th grade, so that's a lot. It's not a large number of students, but I think one of the challenges is just having the supportive staff to be able to help with a grade band or two. And I know I've really appreciated having a bilingual paraeducator help with our kinders, and I just hope that that continues. But I'm just thankful that, you know, we can use the people that we have, especially those that are bilingual, and can really make bridges with our young kids. We also need to consider that ELLs need to have access to all of our programs, whether it's high cap, whether, you know, there's other programs that they can benefit from, and that language is not seen as a barrier. They will grow, they will learn, and they have so many assets with their cultural linguistic backgrounds. And so the more I can train staff that way, the more I can help, you know, our paraeducators and our teachers just really create a safe place for those students with all that they have to offer. And that's really the goal, to avoid stereotypes and bias and really put into our kids. Some next steps moving forward. One of the things I'd like to grow in is to continue to provide professional development. A lot of times I will talk to our PD. We will talk about what is offered to staff. WIDA has classes and just, you know, classes that are free, clock hours for teachers. And so WIDA is really a great resource that the state offers that we can train our teachers in. They can get clock hours for it, and they can learn how to work with the ELLs more effectively. And I'm just going to continue to adapt the curriculum that our district uses. And one thing that I did this year is I applied for a grant with SEF, and I'm still waiting on it. But I really want to see us have a digital program for our newcomers so that they can really, we can track their growth, and they can work on phonics, and they can see the mouth and the speaking and use it on their own time during rotations in classrooms. So I'm really working on that digital program. And then again, just continuing to share best practices with our classrooms. Thank you. And do you have any questions for me?
All right.
Yes, Pat.
Hi.
Oh, sorry. I know.
Sorry.
Oh,
Go ahead.
is that
Go
okay?
ahead.
Sorry. This is just so interesting to me. I'm so impressed at how you're able to integrate so many kids with so many different languages and work with, you know, try to address each individual kid's needs. But what I'm curious about is, so say you have a new student, you had a fifth grader who's just started.
Mhm.
You said this student has never spoken English.
Mhm.
And so they're coming in, and how do they're working with you, but I know the feeling of being in a place where people don't speak your language, and you say something and they say, blah, 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 and you have no idea. And I'm thinking of that fifth grade student wondering, what is their experience in the classroom, and how do you help them get over that, you know, while they're learning English, what's happening with them in the classroom when they don't understand anything that's going on? I'm just curious sort of how you work through that with them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, our general ed teachers really take that.
Mm-hmm.
They have to take that because they're the ones that are
Right.
leading that classroom.
Right.
So, you know, we talk about physical response, you know, physical gestures, you know, spending visuals, lots of visuals. You know, some teachers will label their classroom. You know, a lot of times we'll have peer helpers if that language is shared. So for example, with the student that I'm talking about, it's not as common of a language. And so we have a peer helper in there who actually speaks that language. So when we can match students in classrooms, that can be really helpful.
Is that a volunteer? Or when you
No,
say
a student who speaks that language.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
So that can be good.
fantastic.
We also use volunteers. I love that you said that, because we've had a couple volunteers this year who are bilingual in languages and able to go into the classroom and help be a bridge with math, with content areas. Using volunteers sometimes is a great strategy when we don't have the funds, to hire. We can't hire for languages, all these languages,
Right.
So, but I think just a lot of humor, a lot of visuals, a lot of, keeping that student comfortable and understanding, yes, there's some limitations there, but, there's also ways to use, there's just a lot of strategies that I can help the teachers use. They use a lot of sentence frames and a lot of creative things that you can do to get them be part of it. It's just might be modified. It might be a little different. We get them right in.
And kids use can students use Google Translate?
Yes, and Google Translate, we totally support
trans. Pages, because
Yep, they can.
I know you can't get, the
Yes.
curriculum in every.
When I am
language.
working one-on-one with my students, we are using Google Translate, we're using scanners, we're doing kind of whatever we can do. And as districts get more populated with that need, sometimes they have closed captions in those languages on projector. There's different things that we can work toward to get more access for sure. Especially if they're literate in their language and they can read it.
Right.
So then you can get really,
Right. That's it. With
One-
older students, obviously.
One of the pieces I'll just share, if
Yeah.
you don't mind, is just that idea of just being so much more intentional. And this, I'm thinking from a first grade
Right.
perspective, obviously, but being so much more intentional about, you mentioned like the visual aids and everything, and it turns out all of those items are actually a lot of times beneficial to all the kids in the classroom too. And so just having all of those tools, but being intentional about it actually benefits more than just those students that need
Absolutely.
them. So
absolutely.
added that.
Right.
little-
Visual routines,
Yeah.
pictures,
Yeah,
all of those
so.
things.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Being slow, sometimes slowing
Mhm.
down.
Yeah.
I had a question, just about another part of the equation. If, you're working with these students, what about their parents? Do you have to find translators, or how does that interaction
That's a fantastic
work?
question. Thank you. A year ago, a little more over a year ago, we worked with Donna Hudson to get Language Line. So Donna was able to procure that for our district. Language Line is something that we can use to call up. You can
Mhm.
either the parent could actually be there with the teacher during a conference with Language Line translating, or you can even do a 3-way call if you're not able to have the parent come in.
Wow.
So you could I could be talking with the parent and the translator in Language Line in different places. So that's been really helpful. It offers all the languages that we would
Wow,
need.
that's great.
Sometimes we still have local translators because a parent maybe has built that relationship and they're more comfortable with that. And, if that has been a successful
Yeah.
transaction, we use that,
Yeah, because sometimes that in person, you get a lot more from, the visual in addition to the language. So I can see where they
Yes.
would want an in-person translator perhaps. But
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right. Thank you
Okay.
very
Thank
much.
you so much. Thank you.
All right. That is going to bring us to our superintendent report.
Okay, this evening I'd like to start with some celebratory notes. We've had some students that have had grand success, and Robbie Fox is here from the high school, so I'm going to have him come up and talk about a couple of those most recent successes. And the first is our choir and band.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very excited to be here speaking with you today about Sequim High School's most amazing students of the week. We have first Claire Torella, who set history for our program as a freshman, clearing the 5.2 high jump, which is very impressive. I spoke with her coach for a short amount of time, not as long as I would have liked, about some of her growth and development, the effort that she's put into it. And it's clear that this is probably not the only record that she's intending to break in her high school career. So we have lots of high hopes for Claire moving forward. And then over the weekend, we also had 2 distinguishing performances from our band and our choir, even with a little bit of adversity. So I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but on Friday, our illustrious choir teacher did have an accident at a skating rink and broke his leg in 2 places right before state performances, which they then took first in without their director. So imagine what we could have done with him there, double first. And our band performed extremely well. In addition to that, we took home first in mixed and in individuals. So it was a very exciting weekend and prior week for Sequim High School. We've got quite a lot of gear that we're shining enthusiastically.
Thank you, Robbie. Exciting times, and I would like to let you know that Mr. Barros, our choir teacher, is recovering right now. So we are in touch with him, and he's being taken care of. Hard times. Hard times. Okay. Next we have the OPA plays that occurred this weekend. Both Wind in the Willows and Don't Stop Believin' took place here at our auditorium. They were excellent shows, not only marvelous singing, but great lines, amazing costumes, and it's just fantastic to keep seeing what our students are putting on with these plays. And I have to also say, great crowds. So they filled up multiple shows, and it's evident why. Then I'd also like to let you know that over the weekend, we had some busyness on our roofs and on our track. We had the delivery of new heat pumps for the gymnasium, and you'll see those up there with the crane. We cleared the parking lot for the crane to come in and make those exchanges. And then you'll see the picture of the track. We started with the pole vault area. In the next 3 to 5 days, we will have the track stripped down to the asphalt underneath the track surface. So we are moving forward. We will then clear the area because we'll be utilizing it both for the grad walk and for graduation itself. And then the work will just simply resurrect after those celebrations have concluded. But I wanted to let you know we are moving forward with those capital projects. And I have to thank Director Sanos for his coordination of times when our campus isn't at such high use. So things are moving forward. I'd like to let you know that second grade at Grey Wolf also had a family engagement night, and they invited master gardeners, and there were many seeds and sprouts, I call it. The students could have different opportunities to plant, and they had a baked potato dinner, and it was very well attended, lots of energy. And I think I'd like to thank the master gardeners for coming out and volunteering their time for this event, and the teachers who helped to coordinate it. It was a wonderful time. All right, now we're going to transition to a couple of things that we need to continue to work on. One is that many of you in the audience and our board received a survey link, and the survey link came out as a surprise. We would always want to let everyone know that that would be coming. We had been working with the Center for Educational Effectiveness, and the timing of that survey, they had planned on June 1st, and so they got it out on Friday. We weren't planning on June 1st and wanted to make sure everyone knew. We're going to go with it because we want the information. We were just going to set that up and deliver that out on a different date. So those links are available and out. We will be letting all of our staff know, yes, it is safe to click on the link and fill it out. And we do appreciate all of the feedback that we will receive. And we will be moving forward to deliver surveys to families, and we'll set that up in our newsletters that will be going home this week. Now we're going to move to a survey result for transition to kindergarten. We did put this out to families who were coming in with registering kindergartners. We'd like to show you what these results are. We did do them in percentages, but I do want you to note the number of respondents. Once again, we still are finding it difficult to locate all of the potential 4-year-olds out in our community. So we had 9 responses submitted to the survey. We did see in it that over half of those 9 did not have a 4-year-old in their family. Okay, but if they did have one, they were definitely 50-50 on their interest in moving forward with transitional kindergarten. This is an important statistic to me because there are more 4-year-olds out there than 9. So we know that if we have 50-50 split, we would have interest in a TK, and thinking about that a TK classroom would be considered probably filled at about 16 students, we probably could make our way with more work in our community to have a class that could come along. So we're going to be looking at that. Then asking if the family might have a 3-year-old, because of course the ensuing year will now get our energy around that. We're seeing that, yes, there are 3-year-olds out. So I would suggest at this time that that's where we start to put our energy, not around next year's class, but the year following, and find out who would be of interest. And then would people have been interested in transitional kindergarten if it had been available? Look at that answer. So certainly that interest is out there. We certainly thought it would be. And early education start is critically important. Research shows us that's what we should be investing in. So we will be digging in. But I did want to follow up with you that our responses are limited. So the way that we're communicating is part of it. We need to find the new ways to get to our families who are out there. And I'd like to start right here. If anyone's listening, we really do have an interest in digging in on this. Okay. Any questions about that or comments? Okay, then we'll move on to the next. Speaking of what we heard tonight, we're going to talk about the results of exploring an earlier start time for Gray Wolf. Like to let you know that what prompted this being contemplated at all was that we recognized that we had students who are being dropped off at Gray Wolf earlier, and we have made that a possibility for parent convenience. We did see that many parents were taking us up on it, so we thought it might be of interest to get school rolling that way. We also felt that earlier start time for the youngest students is certainly a viable option. And then as far as the end of day, we felt as though them getting on the bus first would be a factor that we thought would be helpful at the school level, having them go out. You certainly heard tonight that from the school bus driver level, that concern exists around the management of the students in that time. So I'm going to show you what the results are. And before I do, I'd like to share with you that I have been in contact with Principal Lopez and Director Hall today. And I did let them know that I would not be bringing a recommendation to you for us to move forward with this at this time. But I do make the recommendation that we continue to study this. And I'd like to involve bus drivers in this, because as you'll see, as we move through the results, when we get to the last question or so, there's an interesting dynamic that shows. So there's something here to explore. But for next year, I think us just having consistency going into next year, carrying it out is the way to go. Okay. So an option brought to families is to consider to start Gray Wolf at 8 a.m. If Gray Wolf were to start earlier, what impact would this have for your family in the morning? So you can see that there was a small percentage who said, it would actually make my life easier. And then you would also see double that percentage said, nope, it would make my life more difficult. I do want us to look at the blue and the yellow. Certainly there are folks who are thinking about, well, it wouldn't really have a significant impact, or it would have an impact, but I'd like to ask more questions to see if we could mitigate for that. Okay. You'll see the number of respondents we had there. Then the afternoon slot, what would occur at the 2:30 time? What type of impact would it have? And you still see that the percentage of whether it would be easier or more challenging stays almost the same. So there are certainly concerns for families. And at this point, I think it's really important that we recognize that the challenges definitely outweigh the improvements in the morning. And we need to explore what those are before we make any decision. So would you support an 8 a.m. start time if all the other schools stayed at their current schedule, which was the intention? You can see that we get more movement there. There's certainly a strong degree of no, there is not an interest right now to do that. Okay, can you back up one? Another one. What I want you to notice is the blue and the yellow. For those that had no impact at all, and those that would consider it but would like more information, if you added the yellow to the green, you can see that we would probably have a result that would be a little closer to acceptable. And I think it's very important that we continue to look at this and understand who do we need to survey so that we can get the actual information to folks that they might need. And also to introduce some of the other benefits that might occur from this, because I do think at Gray Wolf, there is some interest on the staff's part that this could work. And then people that have their own children who work for us, but they want to ensure that it will work for their schedules too, because right now it is. Okay. So we will continue to discuss this, but we will not be implementing this next year. Mhm. You have questions or comments?
I do. Well, I noticed that we surveyed them to find out would it be more difficult. Was there no response for why it would make their lives more difficult?
We do have responses that were open-ended, and so we've collected all of those. And in reviewing them, I would say transportation, the fact that there are multiple students that need to be at different schools, and also the fact that some people have daycare lined up already in a certain fashion, so there would have to be a change to that.
So we did get some reasons why. Good.
Oh,
Okay.
yes.
Because I didn't see them in there, so I just didn't know if we just didn't ask or if they were just.
We did
separate.
ask,
Okay.
and so yes, we have combed through each of those, and it will give us an idea about how to survey differently next time, and then also how to start the conversations so that we can have some forums about this types of things. And I think going right up to transportation and talking to bus drivers and communicating between groups what there are for interests would be important.
Thank you.
Mhm. Okay.
All right.
All right, we'll keep moving on then. I'd like to let you know that the CTE work group did meet. We are putting together some of the documentation that is required for the CTE LCP grant to be awarded. The OSPI Office of School Construction has been assigned the LCP grant, so they will be the facilitator. And they do not issue the grant award letter until all of their benchmarks have been met. So they have now introduced us to what those benchmarks will be, and we are working to meet those. And many of those are items we had already submitted with our LCP application. So it's just a matter of making sure they are fully accurate for what we now know and that we submit those. I'd like to let you know that we are continuing to work on the tennis court grant. I did have a meeting last week with Ellen Barty from the Peninsula Tennis Club. We'll meet again this week. We also have received an anonymous donation, and I would just like to say thank you so much to the Olympic View Community Foundation for our tennis court resurfacing. And once the initial donation was made of $20,000, a second donation has been contemplated, and Sequim Education Foundation and the OVCF certainly are working to help us with grants. And the OVCF has let us know that that has arrived. We will utilize that money as matching funds toward the grant so that we may be able to leverage more of a point accumulation in our grant application. So I'll let you know how that goes. Also would like to let you know that many of us went to the ESD last Friday, and Eric participated as well. Sarah Lynn Pozernick was with us as well, to have a meeting called Common Threads, where we have WEA union participation with superintendents and other leaders to decide what common ground we have and what types of issues we can have advocacy for together, that we'd be stronger together in our messaging. And the facilitation that we experienced brought us together in a way where there were multiple inroads that were made and discussion points brought up. And I think it's going to be a very fruitful exercise for us as we move forward into next year, and a planning group that I think, are you both on the planning group? All
Yeah.
right, great
Yeah.
influence. We will be seeing that. We're going to talk about some of the very critical issues that our teachers are bringing up every single day. Do you want to talk about any of those?
Yeah, I think it really just talks about the idea, but first, very well attended,
Oh, yeah.
right? And so across the entire region, but just along the lines of reimagining maybe what education should or could look like to the benefit of students and staff and everybody involved. And sometimes some of the structures that we have in place can be limiting in a lot of ways. So it was really good to have that sort of open, broad conversation with everyone, and just to see how much really, I mean, dare I say, agreement in the room about what it could and should look like. So
Definitely. It was called Common Threads, but I think there was common ground.
Yeah.
So that's exciting, and I look forward to what happens next.
yeah,
Yeah, it's good. Okay, we are having bi-weekly meetings with Wenaha around our long-range facilities planning and preparing for our long-range facilities planning groups. We also are monitoring our capital projects, and as you saw on the earlier slide, those are moving forward very well. I'd also like to share that we would like to talk about the dates for meeting with the city of Sequim. The city of Sequim did discuss this at their most recent council meeting. We need to go back to the drawing board because the dates that they put forth to us are dates that don't work for you. And I'd like to talk about Monday, the 24th of June, and maybe having an afternoon meeting that we could propose to the council, 3 to 5, for instance, or to possibly look at the 25th or 26th that week, if there might be availability. So if you could get back to Tracy about that, that would be a place for us to start and make an offer of what we think could work. All right, 3 more things. Student rep interviews will occur tomorrow, and we will have Director Halverson and Director Johnston with us, along with Ariana, to make those decisions as we contemplate a new junior representative. I'd like to let everyone know that Tuesday, June 18th, Port Angeles, different groups in Port Angeles have put together the screening of a movie called Screenagers. And I would like to ask everyone to consider looking this up and attending. It will be open at 5:30 at the Field Hall on Tuesday, June 18th. Screenagers is a movie, documentary style, that really talks about students' interaction with screens as they're growing up. And it is a movie that I have experienced. It is a community conversation that this group is starting. And I would love for us to be a part of this if possible. And the invite is open, so I hope people will check that out. I have important news to move on to about driver's ed. Okay. So you see what we have up. There is going to be a town hall. Now, this town hall is happening on the peninsula up in Forks, but there is a QR code available if you cannot make that. What is important to know about this is that there is an effort by the Department of Labor to look at what types of access are occurring on the peninsula for driver's ed, what improvements need to be made, what types of even instructor side development needs to happen. And the Senate Bill 5583 proposes making driver training mandatory for 18 to 24-year-olds. So that's what's really gotten this started. But this is a discussion that we can latch onto to forward our interests here. And this is fresh off the press. I just received this afternoon, so the timing is great. I'd like to just let everyone know, please scan the QR code, answer the questions that pop up. Let's be heard about what we feel could be useful on the peninsula here. And we are going to also pursue the fact that interested in learning how to operate our own driver training school. These are the conversations that we've wanted to be a part of. So we'll be following up on that too. Okay. Exciting. Tomorrow I will be attending by Zoom Department of Natural Resources meeting to give public comment for timber sale advocacy that will benefit Sequim School District. It's really important to know that our school district, as a junior taxing district, continues to be notified of impending sales for timber. And certainly that revenue is very important to our capital projects progress. That is what we've dedicated money from timber sales to in the past. We now have some definite issues we want to address: safety, security. We have capital levy projects that, because of escalating costs, may not get completed by the end of the rotation. We'd want to be prepared for those. I will say timber revenue is a bit unpredictable. B, the timing certainly is. So you can't depend on it as certainty as you can with a capital levy flow. But the fact that we wouldn't even be seeing the money if these timber sales don't work, that's an issue too. So I will be making sure that our voice is heard about how we would effectively be using those funds. And then I'd like to talk about a technology lease in the consent agenda this evening. As you know, you did put forth your advocacy toward us leasing for technology. What I'd like you to know is we found a creative way in this to leverage CTE funds at the middle school. The way the rules work, if a primary equipment purchase is made for use in the CTE environment, its use outside of the CTE environment is allowable as long as it doesn't impede the use. So our CTE programming is science-based at the school. And while we certainly will not be funding all of the laptop purchase through CTE, a portion of it will be, and that is completely fair because the science and digital media classes and the new industrial arts class that we hope to forward will all be CTE focused. So I think it's been a good partnership and a creative way for us to consider how we leverage funding so that our students have what they need. And I can tell you, Bo's right here, his work toward seeing this through and finding the way that leasing could work for us, and the ESD's assistance around purchasing cooperatives, because that's what we used. OETC is a purchasing cooperative. They do all the bidding for us outside of the typical process, and they make sure it's competitively bid. So it's excellent. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. Do you have any questions? No? Okay. Let's go ahead and move on. We have board business, and the first one is the resolution number 13, 23-24, Intercom and clocks.
Okay, Bo, would you like to just speak to this briefly? Thank you.
So the resolution there is just basically to announce to the board and the public that we are pursuing clocks and intercom solution for the middle school and Helen Haller, because their systems that they've been using have either partially to a significant degree or completely failed. And it is at this point a matter of not only communication, but also safety and security. And so that's why we're proceeding forth. We have a system selected based on a trial that we started this school year over at OPA. And after having been using that system for a couple of months now, they've been satisfied with it, and I think it'll work well in our system. And their engineers also support connecting in with other systems like Honeywell and the building management system that we're looking at the high school. So I think we're kind of covering our bases there. We're prioritizing the safety and security of the staff and students.
Oh, first we would need a motion.
I move that we approve resolution number 13 for the 2023-2024 intercom and clocks.
I'll second.
All right, do we have any discussions or questions? We have an advisory vote on the approval of this resolution, clocks and intercoms are moving that direction.
Aye.
Okay,
Hi.
okay. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. And next we have, let's see, HVAC, OPA HVAC, approve change order number 3, Meeling Construction, OPA HVAC.
You will see on the item on your agenda that the original scope and new scope have been outlined. Basically, indoor heat pump units will remain and require wiring and disconnects. And there needs to be a new panel in the penthouse in order to run these. And we need new conduit wire and breaker. And then we need 2 additional exterior units. And they will need the same treatment with that wiring. So we're bringing this to you tonight so that we can move forward with that HVAC addition.
You have a motion.
Sure, I move we approve the change order number 3, Neely Construction, OPA HVAC.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Advisory vote.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Next we have approval for the, study session, June 20th, 5 to 6:30. So adding this to our scheduled meetings.
As you know, we've been having regular study sessions this year. We did not have one delineated on the June meeting, and so we'd like to bring this to the board for approval.
I move that we approve the study session for June 20th from 5 to 6:30 p.m.
Nice second.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, advisory vote. I'm not- Any thoughts on the study session? All right, next we have the approval of the 2024-2025 board meeting calendar. That pulled up. And one difference that you'll see is that there's a couple of months where the Monday would have fallen because it's right after a school break. That first meeting, see if I'm explaining this right. Or on the months subject to where that first meeting would fall either right after a break or a spring break. What we've decided to do is or proposed that we just have one meeting during those months instead of bumping everything back to either then it switches for it to be the second week and the fourth week instead of the first and the third, and kind of, that sequence continues month after month. It made more sense just on that particular month. We would just have the one meeting. Am I explaining that right?
Yes, and the history of this is we have canceled those meetings for the last 3 years. At least definitely the 2 that I've been.
But other than that, it uses, it's our same sequence essentially, so.
I assume if we approve this calendar, if we make changes to this calendar, it would need another approval.
Correct.
So we need to keep that in mind, because there may be a reason that, next April, we have to change something for some reason.
Right.
Yeah, but there's a process, so we can do that. Yeah.
Right, well, we sometimes question the process. Or we didn't think we had to vote to change the meeting date, but I think we do. And if we voted, this is a vote of the board, this calendar.
Okay, so would that, in your mind, be related to changing dates and cancellations, or just changing dates?
I guess that would be up to the board to decide. I'm a little bit nervous about having only one meeting a month in those months, because things could be happening that we don't know about now, so.
Right. One other aspect to keep in mind is we do have the ability, provided we give 24-hour notice, to schedule a special meeting to which we could maybe have a posted agenda where we just have even a one agenda item. So to that point, if there was something that happened during that month or the month prior, we need to take action on this prior to the next scheduled meeting, that would always be an option as well. And that's a special meeting. There's also an additional clause, which I believe is an emergency meeting, in which you don't even need the 24-hour notice. There are specific types of emergencies that are listed out, I believe, as examples, like natural disasters, floods, and that type of thing. But there's that layer of protection as well in the event that we would really have to meet, like that's come down, we're meeting right now kind of a situation. But yeah, so other just details for folks to know.
I could see something like that happening if Winnehaw or like Santos come and we have to have a change order and we need it now. That we might want to have call a special meeting just for that one item.
Right.
That's a great example.
Well, in that case, I move we approve the 2024-25 board meeting calendar.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Is there an advisory vote?
Aye.
Okay. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes. And I do believe that concludes our board.
No.
Nope.
There's one more.
Oh, yes. The first reading and approval of 6970 naming facilities. You want to start us off with this one? Thank you for keeping me on track.
Sure. As our long-range facility planning group continues to move forward, it's certainly on our minds that we may have facilities in the future, and with the CTE building certainly as one of them that may be coming to fruition. I felt it was important that our policy group look at our naming policy and procedure. We did that, and we are recommending that we move forward with some language. I'd call it a language evolution to think about what the different pathways have been in our district up to now. We certainly were very fortunate to have the naming of the stadium and the naming of the field most recently. But in the future, we're going to have other buildings to name, and having a smooth procedure that really does encompass thinking about many different aspects and different ways the community would want to recognize buildings as important. So we've come up with this, and I'm bringing it to you for first reading so that you can ask any questions you may have or make any points around processes that we would use.
So this is both a policy and a procedure.
Yes, we have both a procedure and policy.
Procedures administrative, we don't approve procedures.
Correct. I did bring it though, because it is a substantial overhaul, because we've considered all of the different avenues for how we would look. And since Sequim School District does have such a rich history of having buildings that we want to consider for preservation, we're in one right now. I think the consideration of preserves local history is very important.
I have a question. I do understand the strike through on the first paragraph that has the strike through, just because it almost seems a little bit redundant, right? Because it talks earlier about it requiring a board approval.
Mhm.
So I understand that part of it, but just curious if there was any rationale with the what is it, I guess I could probably maybe answer my own question, but I would love for you to give more if it just talks about being reflective of mission values. Is it because that's almost too open-ended, or too any discussion on that specifically, or?
The first three paragraphs that we do introduce, we feel that we're bringing a policy that's very clear about the function of naming facilities. It wasn't that we weren't intending to regard the mission and vision, and in the procedure, I think that is reflected about how we would make those types of presentations and considerations. Certainly, it's about the types of facilities and the use of images, titles, logos, and making sure everyone was clear on what this function would be.
Mhm.
So I think the procedure does a better job of outlining the considerations.
And I would say that when I was reviewing this, I thought that it seemed pretty, well, definitely previous for the revision was very restrictive. With the board approval required regardless, it did seem like it was maybe overly burdensome to put so many requirements when at the end of the day, you have to have board approval anyways. So I think the language is that I felt reading it, the language that's put in there seemed a little restrictive. So removing some of the restrictions, since it requires a board approval before it can be instituted anyways, it just seemed kind of, like we were saying before, kind of redundant checks and balances. So I don't mind the revision on that.
A little history of this naming. The original policy that was very old was very restrictive. And it was necessary to make some changes to the policy so that we could name the stadium and the field the way they've been named. And I think this is the next step in, and I think the precautions, whatever you call them, restrictions or requirements, are still there. And it makes it, I think, probably more open to appropriate naming of facilities in the future. That's less restricted, more open to community support.
And I will add, I did notice too that they, were with naming and stuff, they were taking into consideration our laws on, that Washington has on naming, like with tribal stuff. So I think it needed to be updated, and I think it's a good update from what I can see.
Yeah.
I also do appreciate that you're receiving a procedure that recognizing that renaming facilities sometimes needs to happen too. So when you have a district that has as many buildings as we do. We have names that are quite direct and simplified at times. As we encourage renovation to happen here, we may see some opportunities around that as well.
All right, is there a motion to move this on for a second reading?
Yeah, I'll move that we approve 10.05 first reading approval of policy and procedure 6970 naming of facilities.
To be moved
Oh, for
Just-
approval.
to second reading.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, it is. Thank you, Larry. I move that we move to a second reading.
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to move this to a second reading. Is there discussion? Or additional? further?
Got ahead of ourselves there, sorry.
No, it's fine, I think. Is there an advisory vote?
Aye.
All right. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
I,
Aye. Aye. All right, motion passes. Anything else? Okay. And we don't have any other sessions after this, or do we?
Yes.
Yeah, we do. Okay. Yeah, oh, that's right.
And we do have a couple important dates coming up next week. On the 12th and 14th.
12th and 14th, okay.
That next week already?
talking about OPA graduation.
OPA graduation, high school
school
graduation.
It's a pretty important,
I
Very
guess.
important.
yeah, for some more than others. Yeah, so with that, we will be going into recess for executive session. And the board will be meeting for approximately 40 minutes to review the performance of a public employee. And so we'll be in recess.